Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Blessed be Yehovah our King, creator of all things and everything. Yehovah is his name. We give glory unto his high and holy name on this day, and wishing everyone an early Shabbat Shalom. Giving due respect to the mighty King of all things and everything that we have. Once again, we will be doing a review of the previous week's Torah portion, which was Miqueitz, which will begin in the book of Genesis chapter 41. And as we have on a weekly basis, a teacher indeed, who will be reviewing and looking and bringing out some highlights of some things that might have been missed, and bringing out his thoughts on certain parts of the portion. I have the pleasure to introduce everyone once again to one of my teachers, even Nasik, Zurishaddai ben Yehudah. How are you, Nasik?
I'm great, Baruch Hashem, and I thank everybody that's taking the time out their busy schedule to review the Sidra. And before I go any further, I'd like to first of all give praises and honor to the Supreme Intelligent Universe, God of my forefathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and due respects to the platform using D.C.B platform, to the spiritual leader, the Chief Prince Yisrael, and also the Chief Uzel, who's hosting this endeavor, which is a great job and a real taxing job for him to do that. And to the brothers and brothers and sisters, princes and chiefs, brothers and sisters, Maureen, Kohanim, and the rabbis that's out there. I greet you all and talk my forefathers, Shalom Aleichem, and an early Shabbat Shalom. First off, I like to I read one of the chat comments from a very astute brother, I can't recall his name offhand, but concerning what I said last time about birthdays, and I applaud his research into it, but I also stick by my point. It's not, I bring out viewpoints, I share viewpoints, and I'm not imposing on anybody to accept those viewpoints. Now, I noticed that in his comments, you could give thanks to the Creator anytime, and that's right. We could give thanks to the Creator at any time. We could give honor to our parents. We're supposed to be all the time. So now, if we say anytime and all the time, which would be better? We know all the time would be better to give honor to our parents. It'd be all the time be better to give thanks to the Creator. But more often than not, we rarely say thanks for the meal after the meal. Even those that might be stringent in praying before the meal, rarely thank you after the meal. So the thing is that you're born once, but you could show gratitude that you reached this milestone, and you have an extra reason to give more gratitude because now you stating on this particular day that the Creator thought enough of me. That be all the odds, all those that's into that scientific stuff with sperm counts. I beat all the odds. And the Creator thought enough of me that allowed me to reach this point in time, and that I didn't make it on my own. So when we celebrate our birthday, we're not celebrating it because we got here on our own merit. We're celebrating it as as appreciation that there's somebody outside of ourselves that grant us that time, and only Him can continue to grant us further time. So that's what I like to share, and in answer to the brother's statement in the chat. But I like your diligent research and everything. And one thing I like to caution people about, because a heathen might do something for one reason, don't mean that we can't do something, in our way of life for a different reason. There's many Muslims that get up and face same direction we're facing. And some of them might even consider facing the mosque over in Jerusalem in the same spot. So, but our intentions and our thoughts and our pattern is directed to that place that Solomon built for God's name to rest there. And we're focusing towards the Holy of Holies in that area, wherever we at, whether we north of it, south of it, east of it, or west of it, we facing it and directing our thoughts to that spot, trying to commune with the Creator from that spot. All right, so that being said, I'd like to go on and speak on about this particular Sidra, Miqueitz. Miqueitz, as you know, some of us would say, which is a better pronunciation. At the end, when we left off at is that Joseph already was in prison for quite a while, and altogether he spends basically 12 years in prison. So and what's remarkable is that he depended on the butler to remember him. And as I pointed out in the last dissertation, that everybody's seen the Creator working through Joseph, except Joseph. And only, in the interpretation of a dream for somebody else, then Joseph himself ascribes, the power of interpretation belongs to the Creator. So, and then that's about the extent of it. But yet, and sometimes even in our most desperate hour, we might ascribe greatness to the Creator, but we don't petition the Creator for our liberation or salvation. So these are some things that, as great as Joseph was, he depended on the butler putting a word in to the Pharaoh to get him out, or somebody in high places to get him out, as opposed to somebody else that's in a higher spot to get him out. So, and we noticed that dreams got Joseph in trouble, but now dreams gonna get him out of trouble. Like I said, one particular dream Yaakov had, and I point out some of the similarities between Joseph and Yaakov. That one dream Yaakov had, the last one that we read about in the land of Syria, about the cattle, and that brought him fortune. Now, now he's about to have a dream that at one time caused him problems. Now interpreting a dream will bring him fortune. So the Creator could take some things that cause you problems and turn it around for you. And there's some things that you might seem to be blessed with that could turn around. So we're going to start in the 41st chapter of Bereshit. And it's interesting how it starts off. You got that, Chief?
I got you, Prince.
Right.
We're in the book of Genesis, chapter 41, verse 1. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years that Pharaoh dreamed, and behold, he stood by the river. And behold, there came up out of the river 7 kine, well-favored and fat flesh, and they fed in the reed grass. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them out of the river, ill-favored and lean flesh, and stood by the other kine upon the brink of the river. And the ill-favored and lean flesh kine did eat up the 7 well-favored and fat kine. So Pharaoh awoke.
Hold right there. Now, we're going to stop right there where Pharaoh awoke. Now, it's interesting because it's a debate on the verbiage, the way the word is spoken on in the beginning of this particular chapter. Now, it's not clear, in the Hebrew, that he actually dreamt the dream 2 years later. And, because the way the Hebrew is worded, for those that will, go back and do their own, particular studies, that it could be, he just waited 2 years and had a dream, but the way the word Hebrew is worded is that he had a 2-year-old dream. And that's more accurate how the Hebrew is worded, where it could be interpreted as that he had actually had a 2-year-old dream. So it's interesting. There's a lot of comments on that, but I just wanted to bring that out in reference to that. Now, also, you notice that when they talk about the kind here, and most time they interpret it as cows, but we got to remember we're in Egypt, and in Egypt, cows ain't going in the river because they be crocodile bait
all day long.
you know. So what you have in the river is hippopotamus, crocodiles, and other fish and stuff like that there. But the main got top guns there, in the hierarchy is the hippo, and then after that is the croc. And the hippos are called some are called cows, and the offspring is called calves. So now that and so when we think about the milk cows over here in America, that's out of place, coming out the river. So we can understand Pharaoh not being too shocked in the first dream when they come out, because you got hippopotamuses and they mostly graze, but they also will eat meat every now and then. But they mostly graze, and hippopotamus known to be short-tempered, and they and they the king of the Nile. And remember, the Nile is like a deity to Pharaoh, and the hippo is like a deity to Pharaoh, as well as the croc. So now you have a hippopotamus that comes out, and then you got some scrawny hippopotamus eating up the other hippopotamus. So I bring that out for we could think of it as hippopotamus and not as cows. Because cows would never make it out once they go in the river Nile. So I mean, just keep it more accurate and depicted for where we're from. This is in Africa. This not in Texas or somewhere. Right. So now when we go back in the next one, the 5th verse, when they said what?
Verse 5, and it reads, and he slept and dreamed the second time, and behold, the 7 ears of corn came up upon one stalk, and rank and good. And behold, 7 ears, thin and blasted with the east wind, sprung up after them. And the thin ears swallowed up the 7 rank and full ears. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And it came to pass in the morning that his spirit was troubled, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt, and all the wise men thereof. And Pharaoh told them this dream, but there was none that could interpret them unto Pharaoh. Then spoke the chief.
Okay, all right there. Okay, before you even get to that, all right, we're gonna stop right there, and then before we get to the 9th verse, because there's a lot of stuff going to be going on. Now reread, how it is that what Pharaoh dreamt, right? And we're gonna see, it said he stood by the river, and Pharaoh, according to Pharaoh's dream, he stood upon the river, like a deity, like he made it, like a god, almost like people that walk the water. Well, he stood upon the water and seen those transpire. So he's thinking of himself as magnanimous as well in this thing. And why the second dream? He had 2 dreams in one night. The second dream, we know, as Rabbi Chief and Yama explained, the grain had a mouth. Grain don't have mouths under normal circumstances. So it's like a horror movie, nightmare, as you would call it. Nightmare. And that part of the world is wheat, not corn, maize like we have in America. Right. So a lot of books would transfer it as translate this as corn, but in that part of the world, it's mostly wheat. That's the kind of grain that's was known more so in that particular region. All right, so I just want to bring out those different things here to bring more clarity, and life to what's going on in that particular region. And one of the things is that when the grain come up, and you say, okay, how bad could bad grain look compared to good grain? So it had to be a real horror thing, because you're gonna have some grains that look really, really healthy, and you're gonna have some grains that don't look so healthy, but he says okay. But then, and when we say it's really terrible looking grain, then they eat up some other grain and still remain terrible. Now that's a serious nightmare.
Different story.
So now we can just move on just a little bit more. Come on, bring out some other disparities here.
Verse 9. Then spoke the chief butler unto Pharaoh, saying, I make mention of my fault this day.
All right, I just want to bring that one point up. When he said his fault, and I'm just going to go on, a little bit more in reference to, we're going to skip a little bit from that point there, and then we're going to pick it up from the 13th, for 13th verse. All right. His fault is that Pharaoh was upset with him. His fault is not that he didn't keep his word to Joseph and acknowledge Joseph. So he bringing up his fault and saying when Pharaoh was upset with him at that particular time. So a lot of times we would think, my back, I forgot to mention about speak out for this guy Joseph. No, he didn't consider Joseph after he got up there where he was at. And then also to mention, his fault in that sense. A lot of people hate to admit that they was wrong in the presence of somebody of authority.
Right.
So I want to bring that out. So, and that's going to be like a parallel later on within this particular story, because now this butler is admitting, how he was, put in a situation because from his own lack of awareness and intention, his own, fault concerning somebody of high authority.
Right.
All right. So now just gonna pick up a little bit more. Let's skip down to let me see. We know the story. The butler was restored, and the baker was hanged. All right. Okay. Now, then when Pharaoh said the 14th verse.
Verse 14 reads, Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they brought him hastily out of the dungeon. And he shaved himself and changed his raiment and came in unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is none that can interpret it. And I have heard say of thee, that when thou hearest a dream, thou canst interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. God will give Pharaoh an answer of peace.
Okay, now, what peace he will give Pharaoh? Before you hear the dream, how you know God will give him an answer of peace? Sometimes, not that the dream will always be beneficial to you, but in this case, it does be beneficial for him. But the satisfaction of, I woke up my spirit pounding like a bell in the morning. I had 2 dreams one night. First dream, I was able to, all right, it's a dream. I'll go back to sleep. The second dream, I know it's a dream, but I'm waiting till the morning because sometimes you be too scared to get up in the dark, And so he wake up in the morning, and in his trouble. So now, at this time, just having your answers, whether you like them or not, whether they're good for you or not, brings about a certain type of satisfaction.
Right.
So Joseph assured him that you will get an answer of peace, knowing it, by not knowing the dream, but knowing that you will get some satisfaction and knowing how it's going to turn out. So that's is one of the areas that's unique. All right, we can move on just a little bit more.
Verse 17. And Pharaoh spoke unto Joseph in my dream. Slikai. Verse 17. And Pharaoh spoke unto Joseph. In my dream, behold, I stood upon the brink of the river, and behold, they came up out of the river 7 kine, fat flesh and well favored, and they fed in the reed grass. And behold, 7 other kine came up after them, poor and very ill favored, lean fleshed, such as I never saw in all the land of Egypt for badness. And the lean and ill favored kine did eat up the first 7 fat kine. And when they had eaten them up, it could not be known that they had eaten them, but they were still ill-favored as at the beginning. So I awoke. And I saw in my dream, and behold, 7 ears came up upon one stalk, full and good. And behold, 7 ears withered thin, and blasted with the east wind sprung up after them. And the thin ears swallowed up the 7 good ears. And I told it unto the magicians, but there was none that could declare it to me.
Okay, I just want to stop one there. The only reason I had to read that is because for people to go to review again, because I don't want to belabor it, compare what was stated earlier and see the differences, and then listen to how Joseph explained it. All right, so those are the areas I want to bring out. Now we know Joseph, I'm going to give him an answer here. All right, but for people to go to review even further than what I'm going to do in this particular lecture, is that I want you just to go over the dream as we read it in the beginning, word for word, and then we go to the next word for word, then listen how Joseph explained what's going on. So now but one of the things I like to point out before, in the beginning, I said Pharaoh standing upon the river. Now he's at the mouth of the river, at the river's edge. So he don't carry himself as a supernatural deity when he's talking to Joseph now. He's talking to Joseph like, hey, I'm right at the edge of the river's edge. Whereas when he told to the magicians, he's upon the waters of the river, standing on the river itself. All right, so we're going to pick it up from Joseph.
Verse 25, and Joseph said unto Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one. What God is about to do, he have declared unto Pharaoh. The 7 good kine are 7 years. The 7 good ears are 7 years. The dream is one. And the 7 lean and ill-favored kine that came up after them are 7 years. And also the 7 empty ears blasted with the east wind, they shall be 7 years of famine. That is the thing which I spoke unto Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he have shown unto Pharaoh. Behold,
okay. All right, hold it. Now, what is important that most people miss in this area here is that how did Pharaoh know everybody else was giving him a bad interpretation? We find out from this verse right here. That's how we find out that Pharaoh knew, you're not giving me the right interpretation.
right.
Because he forgot the interpretation, not the dream. That's why Joseph said at the very beginning, the Creator had already showed you. And that's how you know that that's not the right interpretation all these other guys is giving you. Because you had the interpretation. So in this case here, Joseph is actually giving Pharaoh back, or reiterating for Pharaoh the actual interpretation that Pharaoh had already had for that particular dream. We can move up just a little bit further.
Verse 29.
Yes.
Behold, there came 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt. And there shall arise after them 7 years of famine, and all the plenty shall be forgotten in the land of Egypt, and the famine shall consume the land.
Mm-hmm.
And the plenty shall not be known in the land by reason of the famine which followeth, for it shall be very grievous. And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass.
Okay. Keep going. 30, we got to finish this part up.
Let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint overseers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 years of plenty.
Okay, hold right there. Now, what was Joseph's job? He was brought out the dungeon to interpret the dream, not to bring about a solution. But he not only interpret, Pharaoh had the interpretation,
right,
that God had made him, for some reason, forgot the interpretation. But he was shown the interpretation. So, but now we never read where Pharaoh had the solution. So now Joseph not only interpret the dream, but he gives him a solution for a crisis, which is more than what he asked for. Because he only asked for interpretation of the dream, not a solution for the crisis. And so he got what they call a bargain interpretation with a solution for the future. And that's a lot of times people just tell you what, well, this means so and so, so and so. Well, how should I go about it? What should I do? What's the solution? Well, is it going to change? Or can I speed it up? So this is which is really unique in this sense, because though Pharaoh got a solution for his dream, nobody else got a solution for their dream. They got an interpretation for their dream, this is a unique thing in this sense. Whereas Yaakov, the closest we find is that he was reminded in the dream to look at the certain type of cattle. But he worked on a solution himself in reference to the cattle, even though he was told already that he necessarily didn't have to do anything. So just a little bit different. All right, so we're gonna go just a little bit further in here. Is that now third verse?
35th verse.
35th, okay.
And let them gather all the food of these good years that came, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh for food in the cities, and let them keep it. And the food shall be forestore to the land against the 7 years of famine, which shall be in the land of Egypt, that the land perish not through the famine. And the thing was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this, a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as God has shown thee all this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou.
Okay.
Thou shalt be
all right. Now, what is good is that, and we know how the story pretty much ends here. That Joseph himself never nominated himself. He told Pharaoh to look for a particular guy and gave a resume of the guy to be able to be over that. So he never nominated himself, though he gave the solution for the situation of this crisis that's coming in the near future. All right. And everybody was pleased, and Pharaoh was pleased. And Pharaoh puts it to the floor, so to speak, by saying, is there anybody else around here that got this qualification? Anybody here could fit the bill? So in other words, Joseph put out a resume that you would think everybody that's around Pharaoh's court, the magicians, the high elite, would have that resume. But so he didn't put a superficial resume, and it was just dealing with this area there, with the solution of taking a fifth part in the lands of plenty and storing them up. Simple job. Simple administration job. And yet Pharaoh said, no, we need somebody that's really super good in doing with this. Now, this ain't the first time people store grain. People know how to store grain. Even in our law, we store grain.
Right.
So what makes this so super is because of the national disaster that might occur if it's not done right and kept up to par. All right. So wisdom is not just enough. A person that's discreet had discretion in doing what he needed to do. Honorable. All right. What it says further.
Verse
matter of fact, no, better, we're gonna stop right there, pretty much. We're gonna go to the next chapter. Go down to the end. But I want to just bring out some points here.
Okay.
That he got promoted. He got a new name. We know his new name is Zephaniah. He had gotten a new garment, some clothes. So where he got clothes stripped off him, now he has some royal clothes put upon him. He got a gold collar, which say we say some books say it's chain, but it's like really in that culture, you get a solid gold collar, as and that's a sign of status, and he got a signet ring. Just a little different. Yehudah gave up a signet ring, a staff, and it's always debated about the third one. If they say a bracelet or or as a rope, whatever the case is, we say a bracelet. So Yehudah gave up three things, and it caused him problems giving it up. And when he seen it return, and Joseph lost garments and stuff like that. He lost the garment that his father gave him. He lost the garment in a part of his house. Now he's invested with more than he was divested of in this particular point in time. So that's to show you how great the Creator could do, how work in your life, that no matter how low that you could fall, where you had to look up to see the bottom of your feet, that the Creator could bring you up, help you, rise up when it seemed like it's no hope in sight, and he could bring you above your circumstances. And Joseph is a perfect example of that. Though he depended on the butler, it was the Creator that took the same thing that got him in problems and helped him elevate out of his problems. Right? And it's for somebody else's benefit as well as his. All right. So now, he had gotten a wife. He married to the priest class. And he said, well, wow, here, it's like marrying, Egyptian priest, idol worshiper, and her name is also an Egyptian name, Asenath. So the thing is, it's her morals, because we know they had two children, Ephraim and Manasseh, and one is to forget the toil of his father's house, and the other one in reference to the Creator make him fruitful in the land of his affliction. You say, if I'm number two guy, all right, the king is only powerful in the throne room than me. How could I still consider this the land of my affliction, and I'm doing financially well? I got a wife I never had before. I got two children I didn't have before. My first child before the famine made me forget the toils of my father's house. All right, not forget my father, not forget my family, but forget about them circumstances that got me in this situation. And we got to bear in mind when he named the first child also, is that we got to think of not only that the hatred that his brothers had, but to him, he was stolen and kidnapped out the land of the Hebrews. That is the last thought he had, that my brothers didn't have nothing to do with this, get me here. So therefore, that's why I'm in this situation so long. So, and then fruitful in the land of his affliction, I didn't even hear a word about why they didn't come get me. And then you wonder, Joseph, with that kind of power, it seemed like he would have sent back to the land of Canaan and said, what's going on? My family got to be famous. They're the descendants of Abraham, descendant of Isaac, and so Yaakov is famous, and these guys wiped out a city, so they got to be famous. So why didn't you send back there? A lot of questions could be raised at this particular point, but I just leave that for like discussions, side bar discussions. So now we're gonna go into the 55th verse. We're gonna start from there. And in the same chapter,
51st verse.
55th. 5.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, go unto Joseph, what he saith to you do. And the famine was over all the face of the earth. And Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians. And the famine was sore in the land of Egypt. And all the countries came into Egypt to Joseph to buy corn, because the famine was sore in all the earth.
Okay, now, Egypt doesn't usually receive rain. they get the water from the Nile overflowing its banks and irrigating the land. One of the things is that when we was told during after our deliberation and in comparing the land of Israel with the land of Egypt where we came from, it said it's not a land that you got to water like a herb garden, where you got haul water and dig trenches and stuff like that to irrigate it. That it's a land that has its rain, its early rain, its latter rain, and a land that the Creator look upon all year round, continually. So now, in the same land where Joseph from, and in the land where his family is at, that they have a famine there. For it was no rain going in that particular region at the same time there was a famine in Egypt. So Egypt didn't really depend on the rain, but the land of Canaan depended on rain. So they had a famine as well at that particular time. The difference is that they didn't store to the level that Joseph had of Egypt, the people in Egypt store. And they wasn't aware about how long this famine going to last. So that's the difference, where you say, well, why didn't anybody else, store up stuff? They probably store up, but they probably didn't store up that much. You figure you store up a grain, and most we normally eat and have grain stored up is when we don't plow the land in the seventh year. All right. So and then you say you get enough grain in the 6th year, for the 6th year, the 7th year, and the 8th year, when the new harvest coming in. So this talking about a famine of 7 years now, and it being so bad that and that's only in that part of the world in Egypt. Now the famine could have been a lot earlier and a lot longer in the land of Canaan,
right?
And they're not even preparing to that degree that Joseph had interpreted Pharaoh's dream. So when we move on from this particular point here, in the 42nd chapter.
Chapter 42, verse 1. Now Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, and Jacob said unto his sons, why do ye look one upon another? And he said, behold, I have heard that there is corn in Egypt. Get you down thither and buy for us from thence, that we may live and not die. And Joseph's 10 brethren went down to buy corn from Egypt. But Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob sent not with his brethren, for he said, lest peradventure harm befall him. And the sons of Israel came to buy among those that came, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. And Joseph was the governor over the land. He it was that sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came and bowed down to him with their faces to the earth. And Joseph saw.
Now his name he had, Zaphnath-Paneah. It also means food man, provider, accountant, and also supposed to be a revealer of secrets. It meant both of those things, as it translated. All right, so now he actually dealing with the selling. When a man, you figure that powerful, that great, you usually don't see the CEO. You see all the clerks. You might see the floor manager. You might see a supervisor over the floor manager once in a while, but you don't usually see the CEO of the organization, of an organization, when you're just buying a little few items. But yet, Joseph, everybody that came had to see Joseph directly before they even was cleared to go buy grain. So that, can you imagine that you got to come all the way up to the particular house to get a voucher? And then one of the things too is, well, that not only grain had to be guarded and protected, but the thing is that you got to keep people from hoarding up stuff like we do in this pandemic. Right. Everybody buy up all the disinfect, I don't know what this thing about toilet paper up north, but anyway, we didn't have that quite of a problem down here in Florida. But all, the toilet paper, paper towels, they buy up everything, hoard up stuff, and not thinking about, as other people out there, it's only so much you could use at one time. All right. So Hence, you go see Joseph, you're going to have sort of like a voucher. You get so much and you're gone. And that's it. But we're going to pick up just a little bit more. And I'm going to try to speed through this a little bit more faster.
Verse 7, and Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, but made him strange unto them, spoke roughly with them, and he said unto them, Whence come ye? And they said, From the land of Canaan to buy food. And Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew him not. And Joseph remembered the dreams which he dreamed of them, and said unto them, Ye are spies, to see the nakedness of the land ye are come. And they said unto him, Nay, my lord, but to buy food are thy servants come. We are all one man's sons. We are upright men. Thy servants are no spies.
Hold on right there. Now, we're going to stop right there. I just want to focus on a few things here. All right. That's it. And Joseph knew his brothers, but they knew him not. And Joseph remembered the dreams which he dreamt of them. All right. Only once he saw them, he remembered the dream. He paid that dream no mind. And the spot that he in, interpreting dreams. Interpret two dreams for the butler and the baker, and he interpret the two dreams for Pharaoh. Matter of fact, Pharaoh dream is the last dream you have that closes out the book of Bereshit with dreams, which are basically, a lot of dreams that was happened. And matter of fact, the only one that we never read about that actually had a dream out all the patriarchs. Basically, it was Abraham. He had maybe an epiphany if you talk about when he went to sleep in a deep sleep that night. But as far as dreams and the word dream being used, he's the only one of the patriarchs we don't read that actually had a dream. But when we look at the Joseph, he remembered the dream after he seen the brothers, and he recognized them, but they didn't recognize him. All right. And then he called them spies when he's, and the first thing they say, that we are true men. But go ahead a little bit more.
Verse 12, and he said unto them, Nay, but to see the nakedness of the land ye are come. And they said, We thy servants are 12 brethren, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And behold, the youngest is this day with our father, and one is not. And Joseph said unto them, That is it that I spoke unto you, saying, Ye are spies. Hereby ye shall be proved. As Pharaoh liveth, ye shall not go forth hence, except your youngest brother come hither.
All right, hold right there. All right, he said spies. All right, what man would send all his sons to be a spy? That's the first question you got to ask. Right. And then Joseph used that as saying, I believe you're spies, because if you're brothers, you could keep this secret amongst yourself. You know what I mean? Brothers could say, look, we ain't gonna talk about this. We're gonna keep it amongst ourselves. So, whereas if it's a companion, he said, well, we ain't blood related. If it's a companion, you might not be friends for long. So now privy information can be disseminated once you and the guys are no longer companions, or if it's just friends. But as brothers, then privy information tend to be more secluded. And so therefore, Joseph saying, because you're saying you're brothers, that you are spies, because you could trust one another not to tell on each other, in a situation, more so than a guy that's not related or blood ties to it. So those are some of the, variants that could be considered why he would say emphatically, yeah, you're spies. That using that excuse, but you're all one man's son, don't mean anything. Right. I'm missing. Nobody looked for me all this time. Read just a little bit.
Verse 16. Send one of you and let him fetch your brother, and ye shall be bound, that your word may be proved, whether there be truth in you, or else as Pharaoh liveth, surely ye are spies. And he put them all together in ward 3 days. And Joseph said unto them in the third day, This do and live, for I fear God. If ye be upright men, let one of your brethren be bound in your prison house. But go ye carry corn for the famine of your houses, and bring your youngest brother unto me, so shall your words be verified, and ye shall not die. And they did so.
All
And
right,
they
there.
said one to another, we are
All right, before you get there, hold on, just one moment. All right, I just want to bring up. Now, all of them locked up already. 3 days. They know what it is to be isolated, put in ward, you know. And then this guy said he feared God, but he didn't believe him as not being inspired. He said he feared God. And the terms he used is a little different. Same thing, you know, he used a little different term with Pharaoh. You know, when he was talking about Elohim would give him an answer.
Right.
All right. But anyway, it said, if you be upright, man, let one of your brothers be bound in your prison house. You know, but go ye carry corn, you know, for the famine of your houses, and bring your youngest brother unto me. So shall your word be verified, and ye shall not die. Now, if you got one guy as a hostage, it logically don't make sense to bring another guy that could be subject to be a hostage.
Right.
Because you all was locked down. Now you got one brother's locked down, gonna be locked down, and then the rest of you know, and they say they're gonna let the rest of y'all go and bring the other one down, your younger brother, so I know you be all right, know you're true men. Now that is really putting yourself in a lot of jeopardy in that sense, and that usually don't make logical sense for a person that's in a tight spot, because you got one of my people already, and you mean tell me I gotta bring back another person to show that, you know, I'm being honorable, and I couldn't rescue the person that was there in the first place on a false charge. So this brings out some dynamics here. All right, and it goes on to say, where we at?
Verse 21.
Okay.
And they said one to another, we are verily guilty concerning our brother, and that we saw the distress of his soul when he besought us, and we will not hear. Therefore is this distress come upon us.
Uh-huh.
And Reuben answered them, saying, spoke I not unto you, saying, do not sin against the child, and you will not hear? Therefore also, behold, his blood is required. And they knew not that Joseph understood them, for the interpreter was between them.
Hold right there. That's the first time you read about language had to have an intercessor to be able to communicate between two people. You know, Tower of Babel, there's language confusion. If you didn't know how to speak to the next guy, you go around somebody else who could talk like you. So you separate. But here's the first time you have a language being a barrier between two people communicating on a particular subject matter. Also, when they said he was true men, that's not so. Now, when they say that we are guilty for what we did to our brother, and then Reuben said, already exonerated himself, and they did not tell you don't harm a child. Yeah, that's what I told you, not to harm the child, because Reuben is not sure what really happened to Joseph. You know, and, that's why he said, don't harm the child. So a lot of times we think that Reuben was in on the sale. We know he wasn't in on the sale, and it's nothing in the scriptures to imply that Reuben knew about the sale, because he came back to rescue the guy. So here, this supports why, for those that would say, well, Reuben never even knew about the sale, because he said, didn't I say don't harm the lad?
Right.
So now Reuben has the same concept that Yaakov had, that something happened to Joseph and Joseph's dead. That's the concept that Reuben would have if we take the sort of story on face value. You know what happened. You know, and even deeper, we don't even know Reuben got his share of the silver. You know, we really don't. I mean, you got a lot of, different commentaries on it, but I'm saying we don't even know if Reuben got part of the silver that was, from the sale.
Right.
But we know that the other brothers had sold them, and Reuben don't know about it. And Joseph hearing that, and then that's when you know that in the 24th verse, he turned himself from them and wept, and spoken to them. And he took Simeon from among them and bound him before their eyes. Now, he knew already that's why Reuben wasn't taken.
Right.
Because Reuben spoke up, not to harm him. The next eldest brother is Shimon. And he knows Shimon's mentality. So Shimon was the next one to be locked up. He didn't take, if we're going to choose, he said, well, why didn't he choose one of the maidservants? Kids. He could have chose Dan. He could have chose Naphtali. He could have chose God. He should have chose Asher. He chose Shimon because Shimon was the next high-ranking authority for us age-wise and responsible. And he heard Reuben's confession that I told you not to harm the lad. So, and yet Reuben shared in the sin. Said we all, because he said we all guilty. So he shared in that guilt, even though he wasn't planning on getting rid of him, though he hated him. Though he hated him just like everybody else. Reminds you of what we do on Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, we say for the sins we committed.
Right.
And we always say that for the sins we committed for this and the sins we committed for that. And no one person in the nation could commit all those sins. But we take responsibility. So one of the things it shows that the first thing about repentance is that you got to, first of all, take responsibility for what you did wrong. And once you do, once you take responsibility for what you did wrong, you admit it, and you try to reform from it and never commit it again. So that's the ultimate about repentance. And so one of the things that all Israel is responsible for one another. And that's the responsibility that we supposed to take. So though Reuben wasn't there, he took responsibility for it. When we go up on Yom Kippur, we take responsibility for what we do, and for what others did. That's part of our group. That's what we do. All right, and that's the ultimate sign. And admitting it and then making a change and never committing it again. So Joseph seeing that, that's what. Then now he was brought to tears. He wasn't brought to tears to locking him up. He didn't think much about that. But after he heard what happened and their remorsefulness, that's the first time you read about Joseph actually being moved to tears. All right, what it says beyond that?
Verse 25. Then Joseph commanded to fill their vessels with corn and to restore every man's money into his sack and to give them provision for the way. And thus was it done unto them. And they...
Okay. All right, we're going to skip all the way down to the next chapter, 43rd chapter.
Chapter 43.
Yes.
Chapter 43, verse 1 reads, And the famine was sore in the land, and it came to pass when they had eaten up the corn which they had brought out of Egypt, that their father said unto them, Go again, buy us a little food.
Right there. Now, I just want to bring out that their food ran out. They let Simeon down a good while. Now Egypt is the track back from Egypt. It's not a 1 day's trip. So Shimon's there for a good while. And they didn't bring enough, they brought enough food to last a good while as well. We know also that Reuben come up with this bright idea. Look here, take the guy, let me take Benjamin with me. If I don't bring him back, then you slay my 2 sons, which is still cutting down the family. Because now Yaakov be lost with, he'll lose Shimon, he lose Benjamin, and he lose 2 of his grandsons, which is 4 sons altogether. And that's the advice that Reuben gives him. And and so Yaakov said, no, man, and that's pretty much the last major role Reuben has in this here situation. All right. But we know Yaakov even told him why you gave up so much information, and then they said that, in the previous chapter, and that we find out that they said the man asked us straightly out. We don't know that the man asked him straightly out at this point in time. So we assume that they just making this up. Say we volunteered this information because the man asked us, but we don't read that thus far. But as you know, just going a little bit ahead of the story, which is this week's will be YAH, you find out that some point in time, since we only got a brief synopsis, Joseph must have asked some intricate stuff. So it just summarized here, because as we read in YAH, when Yehudah approached him, you know, Joseph winds up, being addressed about why he asked those particular questions. Now, there's another thing I'd like to bring out as we go on, you know, and I don't want to be remiss in not bring this out, is that if you're supposed to sell corn and grain, why are you interrogating where a person's from? You know, you're supposed to be over the land selling grain. That's one of your jobs. But his other job is being a vizier. So now it's not just I'm selling food, I'm dealing with matters of state. So matters of state is the security of the state. So now and when Joseph is addressing his brothers, he addressing them in a manner of a state security force, because he's the minister. So I need to see where's the welfare of the state is in jeopardy or not. Because if I was just simply a food seller, a food merchant, and just selling food, there's no need me to ask them, do you got the money? All right, this is how much we're gonna sell you. And that's it. But in matters of state, if you're a spy, I need to know. If you're an enemy, I need to know. Because it's more than the grain that's in jeopardy now, it's the state. So I'm acting in the capacity of the grand vizier, second to Pharaoh. So hence that brings out why would Joseph ask them all these intricate questions, besides knowing that they're family and stuff like that. And that's why it wouldn't seem too strange, you know, for us looking at knowing Joseph's background, you know, that he had to deal with, because everybody that come into the city must see him directly, then he direct them where they need to go and get the grain, as well as he had grain right where he at. So now we're gonna pick it up where we left off at in the 43rd.
Verse 3. And Judah spoke unto him, saying, the man did earnestly forewarn us, saying, ye shall not see my face, except your brother be with you. If thou wilt send our brother with us, we will go down and buy thee food. But if thou wilt not send him, we will not go down. For the man said unto us, ye shall not see my face, except your brother be with you. And Israel said, wherefore dealt ye so ill with me, as to tell the man whether ye had yet a brother? And they said, the man asked straightly concerning ourselves and concerning our kindred, saying, is your father yet alive? Have ye another brother? And we told him according to the tenor of these words, could we in any wise know that he would say, bring your brother down? And Yehudah said unto Israel his father, send the lad with me, we will arise and go, that we may live and not die, both we and thou and also our little ones. And now be sure to.
All right, we're gonna skip all the way down to the 10th verse. Just the 10th verse a little bit.
Verse 10.
Besides Yehudah say he'll be to blame forever. Go ahead. 10th verse. Same chapter.
For except we had lingered, surely we had now returned the second time. And their father Israel said unto them, if it be so, now do this. Take of the choice fruits of the land in your vessels, and carry down the man a present, a little balm and a little honey, spicery and ladanum, nuts and almonds, and take double money in your hand, and the money that was returned in the mouth of your sacks, carry back in your hand, peradventure it was an oversight. Take also your brother, and arise and go again unto the man. And God Almighty give you mercy before the man, that he may release unto you your other brother and Benjamin. And as for me, if I am bereaved of my children, I am bereaved.
All right, right in there. Now, you say, well, he bringing about stuff like honey, nuts, spices. All right, that's something that you could use and eat. but it's not good for cattle. You know what I mean? So you can't feed the cattle a bunch of nuts, you know, and you can't feed the cattle a bunch of honey. So the grain is not only for yourself, but it's also for the cattle. So hence, like, you know, a lot of times we always say, well, you know, when we was in the wilderness for 40 years, the cattle, our cattle ate special food as well. Cause we wasn't packing no grain. We wasn't growing no crops. So they ate the manna as well as we had manna. And just that we had to gather a particular amount for our household, where the animals, the cattle graze and whatever they were grazing on, and including if the manna was out there in the grass, they grabbed some of that. If we had grass area. And we noticed that the manna came down upon the dew, upon the grass. So most places when it came down, we had a patch where it had some grass at, and it had some dew upon it, and you had some manna there. But so the animals, our animals even ate special food for the 40 years in the wilderness. So when we know that Yaakov has nuts, you could keep for a long time. And honey, you keep, they got jars of honey they kept for 1,000 years. You know, but you can't sustain yourself off of honey, and you can't sustain yourself just off of nuts. You needed that grain, and the cattle cannot sustain themselves. So, so now we're gonna go on down to we're gonna skip that. We're gonna skip past that, and we're gonna go down in the 43rd chapter, and we're skip all the way back down. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go down to the 25th for the next verse.
Verse 25. Genesis 43. Verse.
Oh, no, matter of fact, now when they bring the money back, we might as well do that. Yeah.
Verse 15. And the man took the present and they took double money in their hand and Benjamin, and rose up and went down to Egypt and stood before Joseph. And when Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the steward of his house, bring the man into the house and kill the beast and prepare the meat, for the man shall dine with me at noon. And the man did as Joseph bade, and the man brought the man into Joseph's house. And the men were afraid, because they were brought into Joseph's house. And they said, because of the money that was returned in our sacks at the first time are we brought in, that he may seek occasion against us and fall upon us and take us to bondmen in our asses. And they came near to the steward of Joseph's house, and they spoke unto him at the door of the house, and said, O my Lord, we came indeed down at the first time to buy food. And it came to pass when we came to the lodging place that we opened our sacks, and behold, every man's money was in the mouth of his sack. Our money in full weight, and we have brought it back in our hand. And other money have we brought down into our hand to buy food. We know now who put our money in our sacks. And he said, peace be to you, fear not. Your God and the God of your father have given you treasure in your sacks. I had your money, and he brought Simeon out unto them.
All right, we'll stop right there for a moment. Okay. Now, imagine how Shimon feel. I've been here for a moment. You know, man, he might have been living well as a prisoner, but like I mentioned earlier, when Joseph was in jail, and when you go into a dungeon, ain't no, you know, I mean, 1 to 3, 3 to 5, 7 to 15. It's to somebody think about you coming out. No matter what the issue is that you go to dungeon for. If nobody think about you, come to get you, you in there for a life sentence. And we didn't really have prisons to put people in per se. We'll sell them into a servitude situation. But that's about it. But we really, as Israelites, didn't really have like prisons. You know, we had temporary thing we might put you in for a moment, but it wasn't like you're gonna be there in a prisoner and that's it. The closest we had is a city of refuge. That's the closest we had to anything similar to that, where you, ignorantly wind up getting a body, slaying somebody, and and then of course you're neglect, but you didn't have no animosity against them in times past, and it's proven. Then you go to the city of refuge. That's the closest you get to incarceration for a period of time. Now that time is an undetermined amount of years, because it says until the high priest die. So I mean, if he living good, and you go in there already, and you about 50-something years old, and the high priest already is 50-something, and his father lived to be 125. He said, and he's healthy. So, oh man, no telling him how long you're gonna be there. It ain't no jubilee. Jubilee will come and go, and you still be in a city of refuge. So one of the things I would hate to be the high priest at that particular time. That's one time, just to sidebar. I would hate to be the high priest when everybody in the city of refuge waiting on my death that need to get out. I mean, that's a serious thing. So hence birthdays might be a problem. You know what I mean? In that sense, and it's because everybody in that city that had to be stuck there is waiting for you to die. But anyway, we know that Simeon come out. We're just going to speed up a little bit more. Joseph asked about his father in this particular chapter, to the 43rd chapter, and he said, is your father well? The old man of whom he spoke, is he yet alive? And they said, a servant, our father is well, and he is yet alive. That was down in the 28th verse. And they bowed their head and made obeisance. Now, that's all the brothers, you know what I mean? And then that's all the brothers bowed before him, but he never read where, Yaakov actually bowed to him in a sense. So that's a fulfillment of the dream. But you notice Joseph is concerned about the father now, not so much about the brothers, because you could bring up a lot of, like I said, Genesis bring out a lot of social problems in a family. So, and my father's alive. I know we was close. How come, it wasn't a problem for him to try to get me to find out where I'm at. And we're close. It should have been a problem how he's taking my absence, because we was really close. So we shared a lot of quality time together. Right. So if you said that Benjamin is so loved by my father, and worried about Benjamin himself being taken away from my father, then I was older than Benjamin. I was closer than Benjamin. So is my father is still alive after all that? Because I've been gone. So you could have been lying to me talking about, my father's alive. You just said you were just one man's children. And you just told me the relationship that the youngest had with the father. But it brings out a lot of, things to, debate on and discuss. But we're going to go down to the 44th chapter. We're going to go all the way over there. So, because most people that heard the Sidra heard most of it.
Chapter 44.
Yes.
Genesis chapter 44, starting from verse 1.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. This thing won't, give me a second, Prince. This thing won't go to 44. Like my computer froze. It won't go to 44. Give me a second. You can start it off, Prince, because something is happening.
All right. 44th chapter of first verse. And he commanded the steward of his house, saying, fill the men's sack with food, as much as they can carry, and put every man's money in his sack, and put my goblet, the silver goblet, in the sack of the youngest, and his corn money, which is really the grain, wheat. And he did
according to the word that Joseph has spoken. As soon as the morning was light, the men were sent away, they and their asses. And when they were gone out of the city and were not yet far off, Joseph said unto his steward, up, follow after the men, and when thou doth overtake them, say unto them, wherefore have you rewarded evil for good? Is not this it in which my Lord drinketh, and whereby he indeed divineth? Ye have done evil in so doing.
Oh, right there. Yes. Now, one of the things is that You say divine it? You know, I mean, he used this to figure out certain things. All right, it's a story with a commentary, midrash story. I just share this here. No proof on it. Like I said, I always gotta say no proof when I'm talking to people on the YouTube. You know, I'm just telling you that's, you know, commentaries of midrash story. All right, that when Joseph had entertained all the brothers and set them according to their birth and their age, the oldest, you know, in order to by the second, the third, fourth, all the way down to the youngest, having Yamin, you know, sitting with him, he had no money, that he had his goblet that he would tap, you know, tap the goblet and say, you sit here, tap the goblet, say, you sit there, tap the goblet, you sit there. But he already knew who's the oldest. So it would appear that, you know, he's dressed strange, got a different name, looking like an Egyptian. And of course, like brothers always bring out, you know, if we look like Egyptians and we had to be the same color,
right?
You know, same complexion. So so if very, you know, if it had been somebody that's a completely different, like if it was an Oriental dressed up as an Egyptian, you say, well, you know, that's Jackie Chan over there, man. I mean, look at here, you know what I mean? Jet Li. I said, look at he dressed up like that, you know. But it's, you know, and you know, it shows that we have very similar features, you know, in history. All right, but that's what he said. He used to hit his goblet, tap his goblet, and say, "You sit here," and then Binyamin, oh, you don't have a mother, and I don't have a mother either, so you sit over here with me. So they marvel, and they was wondering how he knew how to do that. So now he talk about, you know, like his divine mysticism. Remember we read earlier about the magicians in Egypt. So there's a lot of magics going on, you know, amongst the Egyptians. And I said before, the difference between Aaron when he met the magicians and those of the magicians that threw their rod down is that the magicians always try to they look down on the people they're entertaining.
Right.
Because they want to mesmerize and amaze you, but they're not amazed. Mm-hmm. They think of themselves as higher intellectual than you are. Right. Whereas a person that's performing a sign or wonder and you know, on behalf of the Most High, they ascribe the greatness to the Most High and not to themselves, and they're amazed that it worked through them. Right. So that's the difference between, you know, and people pay to be bamboozled. That's why we go see a magic show, an illusionist, because we paid to be entertained with that. Say, wow, you faked me out. You know, not that you're supernatural, but you faked me out, and I'm amazed that you was able to fake me out. So hence that talking about the diviner, you know, they said that's what most of the Egyptians was into at that time. All right, so you go continue.
Verse 6, and he overtook them, and he spoke unto them these words. And they said unto him, wherefore speaketh my Lord such words as these? Far be it from thy servants that they should do such a thing. Behold, the money which we found in our sacks' mouths, we brought back unto thee out of the land of Canaan. How then should we steal out of thy Lord's house silver or gold? Well, whomsoever thy servants it be found, let him die, and we also will be my Lord's bondmen.
Okay. So that means you got to really trust who you with.
Right.
You got to be able to be assured of what you're with.
Right.
And so, you know, I mean, they came drastic. They remind you of Yaakov when he left from Laban. And Laban had covered up all that distance in one day, pretty much, and caught up with him. You know, and he used the thing about the idols. And let the idols, you know, and also it was Laban accused Yaakov of stealing his idols. So now we got something else similar to idols, a diviner's cup that's involved now. All right, let's read a little bit further.
Verse 10, and he said, now also let it be according unto your words. He with whom it is found shall be my bondman, and ye shall be blameless. Then they hastened and took down every man his sack to the ground, and opened every man his sack. And he searched, beginning at the eldest and leaving off at the youngest, and the goblet was found in Benjamin's sack. And
Okay. All right. Now, before we get to the 13th verse. All right. Start from this and work their way down. Like real suspense. I ain't got it. You ain't got it. I ain't got it.
Right.
You know, so that's a real suspense thriller. All right. Come on. 13.
Verse 13. And they rent their clothes and laid it every man his ass, and returned to the city. And Judah and his brethren came to Joseph's house, and he was yet there, and they fell before him on the ground. And Joseph said unto them, What deed is this that ye have done? Know ye not that such a man as I will indeed divine? And Judah said, What shall we say unto my Lord? What shall we speak, or who shall we clear ourselves? And shall we clear ourselves?
How shall we?
And how shall we clear ourselves? God hath found out the iniquity of thy servants. Behold, we are my Lord's bondmen, both we and he also in whose hand the cup is found. And he said,
all right, now there's some, all right, the iniquity of the servants, you know, said right. God had found out. All right, the Creator already knew, but it means it's like I'm exposed. We're exposed now because this shouldn't normally happen to us when we're trying to deal with a lot of integrity at this particular point in time. Remember earlier when Joseph went down into Egypt, he excelled in his integrity. Yehudah went down from his brothers and descended in his integrity for a moment.
Right.
All right. We got a couple more verses in this.
Verse 17. And he said, Far be it from me that I should be so. The man in whose hand the goblet is found, he shall be my bondman. But as for you, get you up in peace unto your father.
Okay, well, that's where that ends that. My gosh. Now, one of the interesting is that they have a lot of tales in reference to Benjamin. He's the most likely suspect to be stealing. And why they would consider him the most likely suspect? Because his mother stole some stuff. So now, if the mother stole some stuff, you know, naturally, it seemed like, all right, you from that side of the family. You know what I mean? Your mother wanted Reuben's mandrakes. You know, so it seemed like you come from the side that everybody wanted to get materialistic stuff. Your brother had kind of coats and stuff, you know, and had all this favoritism. Now all of a sudden that you were sitting over there in a honorary seat and everything like that. Now you want the goblet too? Yeah, because you replace your brother. So it makes Benjamin really look like he's a strange character, you know, but from the setup. And sometimes a setup, you know, I mean, like I said, a setup is misleading. And we've seen examples of that in scriptures. So, you know, I went, you know, highlighted, you know, some things, and hopefully people got some things out of what I was saying. Hopefully some of the things was enlightening, and any mistakes been my own. And also for those that might be observing, because since we're doing this here YouTube program early, the fast of Tibet, which is tomorrow, you know, tomorrow morning, which is day fast, and the 10th month is it's several fasts that's mentioned in the book. That's it's not mandatory by the Creator, but it's more like a patriotic fast. All right, one of the fasts is 3 of the fasts is actually basically 4 of them had to do during the Babylonian period itself, in reference to the fast of Tibet, in a sense that when the Babylonians finally got ready to, you know, come through Jerusalem, you know, in late season and pillage and stuff like that. The fast of the 4th month, which is 17th of the Tammuz, is the fast when they actually break the walls, and the fast of the 5th month, which is Av, which is the 9th of Av going into 10th, is when the temple was destroyed, and a lot of things happened around that same time. So all those got in reference to that Babylonian period when we was messing up really bad. So and that most people, some people will be observing the fast on tomorrow morning, early in the morning to, some of us carry the sundown, some of us carry the time zone, depends on what part of the country or the world you at. And it's just a thing about commemorating where our forefathers had messed up, and it's a sign of regret. We just left Hanukkah itself, which is a thing of dedication, and it's ironically that they don't even talk about a fast, and they just talk about a celebration of dedicating oneself, and then this fast come right behind that. When we look at the fast of Esther, which is a fast is named after, in a tribute to the Queen Esther, her name was Hadassah, but her Persian name was Esther itself. That's, when she got ready, before she got ready to go into the king and plead, and make a petition for them on behalf of the people. They do that fast. Now, these fasts is, like I said, it's just traditionally observed, but it's not ordained by the Creator where you have to observe it. I just like to bring that up because it's part of our history. And remembering how low we fell. And if you recall when you messed up, you're supposed to be able to make better, better a response of coming back into the grace of the Most High. So those that are observing it, say a good fast, and those that don't, it's good to have knowledge on it. I know some people that from a rabbinical approach might read part of the scriptures, the Tanakh or the Talmudic verses and stuff like that, and that according to their rabbinic tradition, they don't have to fast during that particular time. I've just been doing it for close to 40 years, a little short of 40 years, 30 plus some odd years, very close to 40 myself personally. So I just share that out for those, since we're so close to it. And as a fast of Gadliah, which is another thing around that same period, which in the 7th month that it mentions in the book of Zechariah. And when it mentioned in the book of Zechariah, I think around about either 14th chapter of Zechariah or either 8th chapter, I forget offhand, either 14:8, something like that. But anyway, in the book of Zechariah, I mentioned the different fasts of that particular time. That the fast of Gadliah is mentioned in the book of Jeremiah. Actually, the Gadliah, the person itself is mentioned in Jeremiah around, the 41st chapter of Jeremiah. And he was the last governor. And this is after the temple was destroyed, that Nebuchadnezzar had left a remnant of a people and put him in charge as the governor with the least of the people. And he was assassinated. And traditionally, they say, it was actually on Yom Teruah, that he actually was assassinated on by Ishmael, who was out to see Royal. And they don't want to, traditionally they don't fast and do a fast on a holy day where you should be, celebrating. So it would diminish the day. So they would push that fast back 2 days after, so the 3rd day of the month of Ethanim. There's the fast of Gadliah, who was the last governor, was a good man. And that was the beginning of the end. Because so those that might want to read about those different fasts, I know at D.C.B. and in CHOKMAH, the actual book that they use in their place, they got all that stuff in the back of this book anyway, for those that might want to get a head start, back of the Tanakh itself. But it's good, history to know about, whether we participate in it or not. If we don't participate in certain things, you like to say, well, why? And at least be aware of it. Because a lot of things we study that we don't participate in, good or bad. We study it so we could be able to judge right from wrong. So we got to, constantly increase our knowledge. And one of the things is that the wisdom that's the Torah that goes along with this particular Sidra, where Solomon asked for wisdom and stuff of that nature, is that both of them talk about wise and discreet individual. Talk about a wise individual. Solomon want wisdom to judge such a wise, such a wise people. So we supposed to always pursue wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. But mostly we told to pursue righteousness and peace in the book. All right. So when I say we pursue wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, that's me saying that. But in the book, it says, Zadet Teodo, pursue justice, pursue. And then in the Psalms, it tell you, pursue peace. Those are the only things that's actually written in the book, to pursue. So in our pursuit for justice and peace, I hope everybody have a beautiful Shabbat, and any mistakes by my own, and thank brothers from D.C.B for the platform. And I say Shalom Aleichem.
Nasik, I have a question for you. It will be hypothetical, or it will be just an opinionative answer, I guess, because it's not stated in the book. But I've always wondered, how long do you think that Simeon stayed down in Egypt before they came back to get him?
Well, I figure if you got a lot of grain, there's only a few brothers, and maybe they're servants, because he had a lot of servants as well. So you got to bring grain for your servants. You got to have grain for your cattle, and you got to have grain for yourself. So I figure maybe, if they're moving kind of fast or something like that, they might want to do it, and maybe maybe like let's close to the book. I'm just throwing the number out there, 11 days or less. 11 days or less. Being safe, and not make sure you ain't losing nothing, and not, you might could do it even faster, because depends on the track and the roads at that time. I know Egypt at the far south, where they at, and then it depends on what part of the land you're actually going to at that particular time where they staying at. So that's a good little track with stuff laying upon you. So at the minimum, I would say maybe 3 days. That's at the minimum, 3 days or something like that. But Yehudah said we could have been there and back twice already. That meant had we not delayed. But they said that they waited a good while, because the food was already done. They ate up all the food. So if you're carrying a lot of food, that means, you had a lot of cattle and stuff like that, whatever it is, that's carrying it back. Right. And you take time to eat and feed the cattle. So, it's my guess, I can say it's my guess, maybe about at the most 11 days, a week or something like that.
You said, so you saying they left them there for a week?
He definitely was there for at least a week. More. Definitely there at least a week. Okay. But I believe he might have been there for close to give or take maybe about close to a month, really. Round trip ticket, round trip.
I don't know why that came to my mind, like about a month.
I would say 30 days, man, because you go through some things in 30 days.
Right.
And you can feel it in 30 days. So, and I just chose that number because usually that's normally a minimum cycle, right. 30 to 40 days. Usually 40 days, 30 days is the book uses a lot of times 40 days as intervals of change.
Right.
So anytime you talk about the 40 days, usually intervals of change. Even from the rain, from Moses going up in the mountaintop 40 days and 40 nights and stuff like that there. So, and I figure, I just round it off at a month at least. Because, Rosh Chodesh, you went through a cycle. Which is still a long time to be locked up in a strange place, no matter how well you're being treated.
It's I could imagine what Simeon. Now, do you think when he was down there, you think that just questions? These are questions I always had. Do you think that he was treated nicely in terms of his brother Yosef?
Well, as one of the things is why would Yosef look to see if they repented? That'd be even a better question.
Right.
By sending them through that drama.
Right.
When he recognized them and they didn't recognize him.
Right.
And they dare to buy food. But I'm sure Shimon was treated well, because he wasn't if you're in, it's like you got this kind of jail, upper class jail, and you got the low class jail.
Right.
So Shimon had to be close by Yosef so he could keep an eye on him.
Okay.
Because he's a VIP prisoner.
Right.
He's not a local prisoner.
Right. Okay. All right. So basically, he had while he was in prison, he had the best of the best. He wasn't in the
definitely. He in the Fed penitentiary.
he well fed too.
Yeah, well fed, 3 meals, everything like that. There, you know what I mean. Got his own little room.
Right.
You know what I mean. It's just that he can't go anywhere because and you can imagine, because Joseph, even when in his greatest moment, when I mentioned earlier that he called his second son Ephraim, it said the Creator made him fruitful in the land of his affliction. What affliction you got now?
Right.
And then you're talking about fruit. But to be able to eat in some place that you don't want to be, no matter how well you're eating, it's what you call heartbreaking.
Right. Hallelujah. So there you have it. Nasik, Zurishaddai, Ben Yehudah. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments or in the chat for future responses. If you really have questions, we thank you all for tuning in once again, and we pray that the Most High God of Creator of heaven and earth be with you all. Tune in next week for a portion, I think, is YAH next week.
YAH, yeah. That's one of my favorite parts. And then, because I claim you're Yehudah, the tribe of Yehudah, myself is my claim, and a picture of my tribe. And that's
Yehudah steps up. Yehudah steps up.
But he steps up in such a unique way. That's what I like.
So next week, people prepare for about 2 hours of talk about Yehudah.
No, I'm not gonna belabor people like that. But I'm just saying. but that's gonna be my focus. The opening lines, my focus. After that is,
it's smooth sailing after that.
Yes. It's just the beginning of the actual Sidra. It's really impactful.
Hallelujah. So there you have it. So Torah Nasik once again. May the Creator of heaven and earth be with you and continue to bless you.
And all of us. All right. Shalom. Everybody have a blessed Shabbat.